Rain lashed against Emma's window. Thunder rattled the old house. She snuggled deeper into the couch. A bowl of popcorn sat on her lap. The horror movie flickered on the screen. Emma loved being home alone. It made her feel grown up, independent. She glanced at the clock, 7 p.m. Her parents wouldn't be back until late. They were visiting her aunt in the hospital. Emma had insisted on staying home. A night to herself, what could be better? She grinned, grabbing another handful of popcorn. The wind howled outside, like a wolf crying at the moon. Emma shivered. She pulled a blanket over herself. A strange feeling crept up her spine. She tried to shake it off. It was just the storm. It was just the movie. But deep down, a tiny voice whispered a warning. Something wasn't right. The killer lunged from the shadows on screen. Emma gasped. She buried her face in her hands. Suddenly the TV went black. The room plunged into darkness. Emma froze, her heart hammered in her chest. Just a power outage, she mumbled to herself. She fumbled for her phone, its light a tiny beacon in the suffocating darkness. A crash from upstairs made her jump. What was that? The wind howled outside, mocking her fear. Emma took a deep breath. It's just the storm, she repeated, trying to convince herself, but her voice trembled in the dark. A soft whisper reached her ears. She froze, holding her breath. It came again, a faint murmur, barely audible. It seemed to slither from the walls themselves. Fear coiled in her stomach, cold and tight. Emma strained to listen. The whispers grew louder, weaving around her like ghostly fingers. She couldn't make out the words, but the tone sent chills down her spine. It was a sound of sorrow, of anger, of something ancient and unwelcomed. She had to get out of the house. She scrambled to her feet, her phone shaking in her hand. But where could she go? The whispers seemed to be everywhere, surrounding her, closing in. She stumbled through the darkness, her heart pounding a frantic rhythm against her ribs. She reached the hallway, drawn to the faint glow coming from the old, ornate mirror at the end. It was a family heirloom, its silver tarnished with age. As she got closer, she noticed faces staring back at her from the mirror's depths. Pale, gaunt faces with hollow eyes that seemed to follow her every move. They weren't reflections, they were trapped within the glass, their expressions filled with an unspeakable sadness. Emma gasped, dropping her phone. It clattered to the floor, plunging her into absolute darkness. She stumbled back, bumping into something cold and solid. A hand clamped over her mouth, stifling her scream. Section 5. The basement's grip. Panic surged through her. She thrashed against the unseen grip, her mind racing. The hand forced her backwards down a set of stairs she hadn't noticed before. The air grew colder, damper, heavy with the smell of mildew and decay. Each step down felt like a step into a nightmare. The whispers intensified, becoming guttural voices echoing around her. They spoke of suffering, of anger, of a hunger that chilled her to the bone. She was surrounded, trapped in a vortex of fear she couldn't escape. The hand finally released her, and Emma stumbled onto the cold, damp floor of the basement. She lay there for a moment, catching her breath, trying to calm her racing heart. But the darkness pulsed with unseen energy, and the whispers continued, swirling around her like vultures. Section 6. The figure in the shadows. Slowly, she pushed herself up, her hands scraping against the rough concrete. The whispers seemed to be coming from the far end of the basement, where a single flickering light bulb cast long, distorted shadows. As her eyes adjusted, she made out a figure standing beneath the light. It was tall and skeletal, shrouded in what looked like a tattered black cloak. It didn't move, but its presence radiated an aura of menace that made Emma's blood run cold. Terror lent her a burst of adrenaline. She scrambled back, her mind screaming at her to run, to escape the nightmare of the basement. But the figure remained, its silence more terrifying than any scream. Section 7. No escape. She turned and ran, her bare arms bumping against unseen obstacles in the dark. The whispers followed her, urging her on, their tone shifting from sorrow to something more sinister, more predatory. They were toying with her, herding her like prey. She fumbled for the stairs, her hand closing around the cold, splintered wood of the railing. But as she pulled herself up, A cold hand clamped around her ankle, its touch sending a jolt of pure terror through her body. Emma screamed, kicking out wildly, but the grip only tightened. She was being dragged back, pulled towards the shadowy figure and the whispering darkness it commanded. Section 8. A Glimmer of Hope. The figure began to move towards her, its slow, deliberate steps echoing in the silence. Emma thrashed against the unseen grip, her heart pounding against her ribs like a drum. She was running out of time. Suddenly, a blinding light pierced the darkness. The headlights of a car cut through the basement windows, momentarily illuminating the space. Emma caught a glimpse of her parents' car pulling into the driveway. Hope surged through her, a lifeline in the suffocating darkness. She screamed again, this time with all her might, her voice raw with fear and desperation. The grip on her ankle loosened slightly, as if startled by the sudden light and sound. Section 9. Home at last? Footsteps pounded down the basement stairs. Emma, what's wrong? Her father's voice, filled with concern, cut through the darkness. The grip on her ankle vanished. Emma scrambled back, her eyes adjusting to the sudden influx of light from the open basement door. Her parents rushed towards her, their faces etched with worry. What happened? Are you all right? Her mother asked, her voice trembling. Emma could only point towards the spot where the figure had stood moments before. It was gone, vanished without a trace. Her parents exchanged a worried look. It was just a nightmare, sweetheart, her father said, pulling her into a hug. The storm must have knocked out the power. Section 10. Trapped. But even as they comforted her, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. She glanced back at the corner where the figure had stood. The shadows seemed to writhe and twist, as if alive with some unseen energy, and faint whispers, barely audible, seemed to emanate from the walls, whispering her name. As her parents led her out of the basement and back into the safety of the living room, Emma glanced at the old ornate mirror in the hallway. The faces were gone, replaced by her own reflection, but her eyes, wide with terror, reflected a chilling truth. She wasn't just trapped in the house with a dark secret. She was now a part of it.